Welcome back. This prestigious music hall offers teens and young adults the opportunity to experience and understand the ins and outs of the music industry. Carnegie Hall launched the B-Side music program, allowing aspiring artists to connect with industry professionals. Director of Social Impact Programs for Carnegie Hall's Weill Music Institute, Ayanna Cole, joined me to discuss the program. Ayanna, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, can you tell viewers about Carnegie Hall and the legacy it has in New York City? I haven't had much experience with it, but I know it's like somewhere that's like really, really cool and has a lot of history. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and you have to come visit. Um, when I think about the legacy of Carnegie Hall, I really think about its popular perception of its concert halls and its being the aspirational destination for the world's best musicians. But what I also really love about the program, about the hall, is how it's also New York City's stage for the world's most impactful activists and artists. So, like, the stages have hosted, and been a platform for people like Booker T. Washington in history, Marcus Garvey, Paul Robeson, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and for artists like Nina Simone or Ella Fitzgerald, Celia Cruz, the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra, to today with artists, from the Bronx's D Nice and Club Quarantine Live to Venezuela's Gustavo Dudamel. So it's not just the acoustics of the hall and the place where it has a reputation for world-renowned artists. It's also a platform for people to have their voices and the power of their voices be lifted in artistry or in activism, to support and lift other people. So it really has quite a long and prestigious history.
Now, can you talk about some of the program the hall offers just in general?
Yeah. Carnegie Hall has the Weill Music Institute, which is our education arm. And so we've been working with young people for more than 10 years in workshops that build skills, that develop personal artistry. We have programs that are both community based and also happen at Carnegie Hall. So we have programs that I think people would consider to be the norm at Carnegie Hall, like the National Youth Orchestra, which is like a pre-professional program for young musicians from all over the country, who come to the hall and then they do tours. And then we have programs like Future Music Project, which is actually a partnership with the Administration for Children's Services. And we have songwriting, music production classes that happen in after school programs and also happen where young people are incarcerated in New York City. And so we've been developing ways to engage young people around career exploration. And then we have early childhood programs. We have a lullaby program where moms are writing lullabies to their unborn child and parents can write lullabies to their new children. And we have school-based programs. So we serve more than 800,000 people each year through local, national, and international programs. And most programs are low cost or free, and really tap into the creativity of audiences of all ages,
Mhm.
inviting them to make their own music in all genres. And most of the programs are free.
That's amazing. I'm so happy that you kind of let everybody know because as I mentioned, I wasn't too familiar prior to this. So I'm so happy I know about that. Now, can you talk about the B side? One, I think it's a really cool name. So if you do know, can you actually tell me why is it that name? Because I think it's pretty cool. And then can you just talk about the program in general?
I love that you asked that question. So I am going to give a shout out to one of my colleagues, Miguel de los Santos, because Miguel was the the person who came up with the name the B side. We were talking about how to begin this program where we wanted to teach young people about the business side of the music industry. And this generation of young people may or may not necessarily remember that there used to be records and records had a B side. And so we wanted to kind of pay homage to the history of the record industry, but also the fact that we want to teach young people about the business side of the music industry.
Oh, that's really cool. See, I had no idea. I love like the musical, history element to that. So that's so cool. Now, can you talk about, how did the program begin?
Yeah. So, as I said, we've been working in communities and with partner organizations for a little over 10 years. And one of the recurring themes was like, how do you build pathways to the creative arts, to careers in the creative arts? Young people wanted to know how to have a living wage. How do I get careers and jobs in music? And we wanted to provide a rich learning experience for teens in New York City. And we also wanted to think about how to address the lack of representation of young people of color in the music industry, but particularly in executive leadership. We found a lot of research that told us that the C-suite level, where there are executives, there are not a lot of people of color. And, the music industry has a lot of representation in terms of artists of color, but how do we get careers, young people in careers, so that there's also representation of young people of color in careers? So all of those things together really was the impetus for starting the B-side.
Now, I'm really glad that you pointed that out because I do notice that a lot of music programs aimed towards children, young people, or as you mentioned, people of color, are usually focused on talent and not so much, the business side. Or, a lot of people think that you can't make a living in the industry of music. And so I think it's really, really cool that you kind of mentioned that and kind of did something that a lot of other organizations, at least I don't, see happening. So I think that was really interesting. Now, why did you want to focus, I guess I should say, like on the music industry? I feel like it could be a little bit intimidating to some people when they think of like the professional side of the music industry. So can you just explain why, there was intense focus on that?
Yeah, I think to your point that there are a lot of programs for children as it relates to music. Young people in our program, many of them are aspiring artists, but many of them are not. But we wanted to have a program where if you are a musician, you understand that your art form is supported by a business, a robust business. I think about the example of like hip hop. Like this year is the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And 50 years ago, hip hop was like young, hungry kids, right? Creative, they had energy, but they were young, so they could also be easily manipulated by an industry that was driven by income, by this new innovative art form. And so, I think our responsibility as leaders in the arts is to help young people both to engage in this business, but to like enrich this new generation of artists so that they lead the industry. So it was important for us to focus not only on diversity and sustainability, but access. How do you get into this business that supports this tremendous industry, this global industry? So it's not just that you're an artist, so you don't have to understand the business. You have to sign a contract, right? What does it all mean? How do you find out who the people are working in this field? And so we wanted to focus on helping young people's both musicianship and artistry, but we do that at Carnegie Hall. In this instance, for the B-side, we want to focus on what's the business that supports your musicianship and artistry, and how do you meet people in that business? So this program focuses on bringing visibilities to careers in the music industry. It focuses on building a community of young people and young professionals and developing those professional skills and like bringing them into contact with people who are already working in the industry.
Now, I understand that in the program, there will be guest speaker panels as well as field trips. That sounds like a lot of fun. So can you just explain, what will that experience look like?
Yeah, so we will have guest speakers, and we've had guest speakers, and this week is our so we've done two cohorts, 14 to 22-year-olds, and so in February we had 14 to 17-year-olds, and this week we have 18 to 22-year-olds. So they are each day there's a speaker. The speakers are in artist management, in A&R, in marketing and radio promotions, in legal, finance, young people learning about contracts, about royalties. And then there are also engineers. There's a field trip to the studio, so they get to spend time with some really amazing producers and engineers who are like at the top of their game in the music industry. And the young people who participated in February, they also had the opportunity to go to Universal Recording and take a tour of their studio and their offices, and got to speak with their staff from all types of different levels of the record label.
Now, this sounds like a really amazing opportunity. What are the requirements to participate in this program?
You need to be between 14 and 22 years old. You need to be curious. You need to want to collaborate with your peers, and you need to bring your creativity, and then you apply to the program.
Okay, so you don't have to be like super skilled in any instrument or anything like that. That's amazing. So it gives everybody kind of an opportunity to join the program. That's awesome.
Everybody has an opportunity to join. If you're between 14 and 2 years old, we want you to join. And especially if you are interested and curious, if you've never done anything like this, you want to figure out like where you want to go. You want to explore what careers are available in the music industry. You want to learn about what those careers are. You do not have to be a musician. You do not have to play an instrument.
Now, I'm curious to know, I guess, before we go, what are some misconceptions a lot of young musicians have about the music industry?
There's misconceptions of young musicians, young aspiring leaders, and there's misconceptions of families, and we want to address both. So I think that we are in an information age. So if you're 17, 18, 14 years old, you were born into a place of lots of information on your phone, social media, everywhere around you there's information. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's more knowledge. And so young people, I think, are very adept at knowing that there's a studio. They all, a lot of young people record. They have friends who are like starting their own recording studios. But I think the misconception is that the person in front of the camera, the artist, is like that's where the money is. But there are tons of other career opportunities in the music industry that exist. And so I think probably one of the biggest misconceptions is really less of a misconception and more of just not having exposure to what those other careers are. And that's what we want to do, is be that bridge, especially for young people of color.
Well, Ayanna, thank you so much for joining me and talking about this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And please come visit Carnegie Hall.
Of course, I kind of want to now, so thank you. Now,
Good.
if you or someone you know is interested in this program, please go to their website at www.carnegiehall.org to find out how you can be a part of this program or to learn more. Also, don't forget to follow them on social media at Carnegie Hall. Stay tuned. We have more open for you right after this.